Good evening. How are you doing? Obviously, no one can really answer because it's not that kind of party. I'm still old school. I'm still used to delivering face to face. So do forgive me if, you know, I forget that I'm doing this online. Um, Claire, my lovely assistant, is also assisting me. And hopefully, Claire, did we work out what to do with that bell noise? No. Well, never mind. Here we go. So welcome. Tonight is all about guilt. One of the reasons I'm passionate about doing masterminds on these particular types of topics is because they feed into common mental health problems that show up time and time again in the therapy room. And so while so many people are like, oh, Keeley, I'm feeling this, or I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I find, me if this doesn't speak to you, but people aren't quite sure about all the small things that actually feed into getting us to the situation where we do become anxious, depressed, and we need support. Guilt is one of the emotions that is particularly problematic for people. And there's a number of reasons why guilt is problematic for people. So tonight, what I'm going to ask you to be doing is to put your questions in the group chat. And if need be, we'll also be taking a poll on some of those questions just to get a sense of what people's experiences are also particularly like. Now, guilt can be a factor that might, generally your life might be really doing well, you might be fine. But actually, the challenge is where guilt is a problem for you. Where is it a problem for you, and what relationships is it a problem for you? That's what really I want to help you to kind of, let's just use tonight to kind of explore, think about that, because it's a massive, like I said again, it's a massive factor that feeds into common mental health problems. And this mastermind series is all about helping. Well, my ambition is to isolate all these small things that we do that ultimately end up with us becoming sad, depressed, and so on and so forth. So tonight, how we're going to do the questions is that if you share those in the chat, I will then attempt to answer those. Sometimes we're going to put those into polls as well. So welcome. Like I said before, guilt is a massive emotion that causes problem. Now, I love interactive. So please do get those questions going in the chat box so that I get a sense of, where, what is also going on for people. Guilt is a massive, in terms of, let's just focus on what where my strengths are. Narcissistic abusive relationships. Can you hear me? Everybody okay? Cool. Narcissistic abusive relationship. So this goes out to all the empaths, any self-identifying empaths out there. Give me some sort of thumbs up, a heart, a like, a wink, something, so I know that I've got my people are here, my tribe are here. Okay, let's do this. Empaths and guilt go together like tea with sugar, potentially, right? So guilt is a massive way that we end up being controlled. Biscuits, of course, biscuits. Big up to KC, my friend who saved me there, right? So guilt is a massive factor that ends up controlling us. What happens with guilt is we become preoccupied with the other person. We end up taking on their issues. And for example, if you have an issue with boundaries, usually the biggest issue is our relationship with guilt. Because for many empaths who come to me who's fallen in love with the narcissist, can't get him out of our head, the boss, whoever it may be, this goes out for the empaths, it can be very difficult to put boundaries in place. Often because boundaries may well have been an issue for us lifelong. So this again links back to attachment issues, how we were raised by our families. So if you struggle with guilt in your adult life, if you struggle with guilt in terms of your relationships, then it's often, I have to say, my people, highly likely that this comes from our past, where potentially guilt was You develop guilt as a coping strategy. So if you felt guilty, you would do this. But like I said to you before, it's also the great tool to control and manipulate you. Therefore, what I'm encouraging you to do is when you feel the guilt, we have to learn to sit with guilt. Often, for many people, guilt is such an uncomfortable emotion that what we do is we respond. So the guilt drives us because it's so uncomfortable to sit with. Rather than sit with it, we act in order to relieve ourselves of the guilt. That results in short-term gain, long-term pain. What does that do to the recipient? The recipient who sees that I can guilt trip this individual, what do they begin to learn? They learn that this way of being is effective. They learn that guilt trips, that's it. And for some of us, what happens is, if I take, for example, the narcissist empath dynamic, what can also happen is where we may think we're being open and sharing, what can sometimes happen is in the oversharing, somebody else is working out where all your vulnerabilities are. You're giving it all away. When somebody knows what your vulnerabilities are, push the button and what song was that? That was a pop song, wasn't it? You gotta push the button and let me know. Somebody Google that for your girl Key. One of my friends out here, save me, save me, save me. So guilt, when we overshare with people, we are actually exposing, for some of us, we're exposing our vulnerabilities, especially for relationships that move at breakneck speed. And that is where somebody quite quickly learns, I could push that button. For example, if you're lonely, they could push that button. Or if you share that sometimes, I remember in one of the relationships I've been in, I overshared that, sometimes my relationships don't seem to last longer than 6 weeks. What happened? About 5 weeks later, he was telling me when we hit our problems, see, this is why your relationships don't last longer than 6 weeks. Because people, what do? The people who use that to manipulate will then take your evidence and then use it against you. This is why it's beneficial for us to move slowly. No breakneck speed relationships, people. No breakneck speed relationships, because we need to learn that if we're being vulnerable with people, that's a gift, because we are entrusting people with our vulnerability. However, what happens is people can use that and manipulate that to their own advantage. Guilty pleasure Key. Yes, sugar babes. There you go. Somebody knew. Thank you very much. I knew it was a song. I knew it was a song. Yeah. So people will then use that to their advantage to control and get you to do whatever it is that what they want you to do. Now, for example, if you've been brought up in a household where there was limited boundaries, now we've all Googled, we all know about boundaries, we all know about hashtag self-care and like and so on and so forth. Yet it can be incredibly difficult if you've come from, let's just use the words, a dysfunctional family, for us to actually really put those in place. It can be very difficult for us. It's not norm for us. It can actually be excruciating. Anybody here, by show of a hand, ever tried to put a boundary in place and experienced guilt? Could we do a poll on that, Claire? Have you ever tried to put a boundary in place and experienced guilt? Okay, show of hands. So we're going to get some stats on that. My lovely assistant is going to, yeah. Why do you think that might be, that actually putting boundaries in place evokes guilt? Now, we know guilt is such an uncomfortable emotion that what we need to do is to remedy it. We don't want to feel guilty, right? We feel so bad. So what we do is we react to relieve ourselves of the guilt. But what do you get? You get the short-term gain and the long-term pain. It's not an effective coping strategy. unless, and if you work with me, you probably know this, unless we have to do it strategically, because I am very strategic. Sometimes we have to learn how to kiss it before we kick the ass. So sometimes it's an effective coping strategy if we have a bigger goal in mind. We have to be realistic about these things sometimes. Yeah. This is why speaking our truth can sometimes be actually dangerous for us. It's not actually healthy for us. So if you've felt guilty when you've put boundaries in place, is anybody happy to share? Because it feels, somebody here says it feels selfish when they put boundaries in place. Now, if you're someone who feels that when you put a boundary in place is selfish, then it's highly likely that you are a selfless person. Yeah? Selflessness often results in you putting everybody else first. Now, if you were like me back in the day when I gave my all and ended up with sawdust, when you put everybody first, you may hope sometimes, for some of us, we may hope that the person that we've fallen in love with would be able to put us first. So we hope to get the recompensation. Or, you know, in any dynamic, often with family, that actually, you know, if I put you first, we're hoping for reciprocal 50-50, no? That, you know what I'm saying, sister? Give me a head nod there. You know what I'm saying? Like, we hope it's 50-50, right? So then in your hour of need, for the selfless people, when that doesn't come back, what is that like for you when you realize that's not coming back? To all the selfless people out there, when you've given and now you need a return on your investment and it doesn't come back, disappointment, anger, rage, fury, hurt. Come on, my people, you know this is the truth, right? And you're baffled. And this is one of the reasons why selflessness, exactly, it leads to resentment. It can also lead to bitterness. And if you know some people over the years, bitterness can also, like, it does things to people. They're not the nicest people to be around. We all know bitter Betty, don't we? You know, keep your time limited with her, short and sweet, keep it moving. And if she's in your family, you're best to just kind of do crowds so you can spread the load, right? Don't be alone, and don't be driving in no car with no bitter Betty's either. It's just not helpful to your mental health. Yeah, it's just not helpful to your mental health. So selflessness is a factor. And if you're someone who sees yourself as highly empathic, what also happens to people who are highly empathic is that we also score pretty highly on the trait of being highly agreeable. I'm sorry, people, I have to tell you, you're too damn agreeable for your own good. And I could put a link in here to a Jordan Peterson video of the same topic. So maybe that's something I'll send on after. Claire, if you can make a note so I can remember to send that on. So people who are highly selfless are highly agreeable. When you're agreeable, highly agreeable, you're selfless, you put others first, you are highly likely, there is a high likelihood that you could be, people will take advantage of you. We're the people who tend to find solutions to other people's problems. And if you're somebody, there you go, not feeling appreciated, and all of those things leads to resentment. Just looking at some of those comments there, all of those factors feed into common mental health problems. That's why we have to dissect what it is that we're doing. And I know when you go to the doctors, with them little 10 minutes you get, if you're lucky, you get your 10 minutes, you better hurry up. All they're going to do is give you some pills and get the hell out. Somebody else is next. Come on. They no one looking to dissect. We need to dissect this. So if you are selfless, you're highly likely to be empathic and you're highly agreeable. Often highly agreeable people end up with highly disagreeable people. And highly agreeable people are always focused on other people, making other people feel at ease, smoothing the waters to avoid conflict. Highly agreeable people, my people, do not like conflict. If you don't like conflict, give your girl key a heart, a wink, a like, or something out there, so I know I'm not alone out here. Yes. I got an amen. We're doing church too. Very true, right? Yes. So we avoid conflict. Often, the people who we are in conflict with are already primed and know this about us. You see, they know more about us than we know about ourselves. That's why for some of us, it's not always wise to tell people you're doing therapy. Yeah, that's why it's not always wise to speak your truth. I'm a big fan of discernment. Yeah, discernment. It's not always good to lay things bare on the table because it can also backfire on you as people use it against you. Oh, you've changed. You're not the same. Slight digs. If you know what I'm saying, put digs in the comments because it's not nice when people start doing the digs. Sometimes it's the same people who told you needed to change your life that when you start to change, because the change impacts on them, now they have an issue with it because those were the ones who rode the pony. You see, they did well when you were being selfless. So what happens when you put boundaries? Okay, we got a digs there, 2 digs, give me a third. When we put boundaries in place, what they tell you, I'm waiting for it in the comments. Keeley, note to self, always have water when you do a presentation. There we go, 3 digs. When you start to put your boundaries in place, Casey, you're my girl, you are now being selfish. And I want you to expect people to tell you that you're being selfish. Of course, you're being selfish. You've been selfless all your life. How dare you change? A lot of people's lifestyles are built on your selflessness. Of course, it's going to be an issue when you change. Get back in your box, Betty. Get back to doing what you've always done. Your selflessness has been incredibly beneficial for others. Some people have a lifestyle out of your selflessness. Some people are driving cars. Big up to all the ladies who've taken out credit and cars on finance. Or is it just me who did that sort of stuff? Huh? Anyone ever had someone driving around in a car when you've done all the paperwork, huh? Because they had a long, oh, I see a smile there. I see a giggle. Yeah, yeah. I see you, my sister. I see you. Yeah, yeah. Because, oh, their finance, they had a massive problem. Something's wrong with their finance. You know the story. It's long like a curly whirly. Always something wrong with their finance. But then what do? We feel guilty as we sit in the car that we've worked hard for because we've paid all our bills because our credit is good. But now we feel guilty. So what do? There you go. Big up to all the fixers. Yeah, big up to all the fixers, but who's fixing your problems? And this is one of the things that comes up in therapy. Sometimes people are bitter about being in therapy. I get it. I understand. You don't really want to be here with me. You would rather be wrapped up with somebody. I get it. But the person who you're fixing, when you're broke, when you're down, they're not going to be there for you. They're not going to be there for you. When they come back for the car, or when they get the car tickets, car parking tickets, if you know what I'm saying, put a comment, car parking tickets, and it comes to your house in your name and you were nowhere in the vicinity and you're like, really? And now you need the money for them to pay you for the car park ticket that they got, and then they don't answer your calls. I'm sorry, but these sort of things will drive you mad. I know it nearly took me to the edge. So what I'm here to tell you is when you say no, when you put your boundaries in place, expect the guilt. You've written a few appeals. Yeah, you wrote the appeals, but did you get this? Did you get the ticket? Was it your ticket though? Well, if it's your ticket, that's all right. If it ain't your ticket, if it was, let's call it Big Dick Derek, yeah, then that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, Roger. Sorry, Roger. Sometimes I just got to urbanize it for the ladies. You know what I'm saying, Uncle Rog? I just got to be real. Yeah. So we have to be real about these things. You know what I'm saying, D? It's the real challenge of what we're going through. So I'm here to tell you, this isn't just about boundaries in isolation. Boundaries are a beautiful thing, but it can be excruciating. Why is it excruciating? Because when you experience guilt, it is also a body-based reaction. So this goes into polyvagal theory, and I'm not here to do the whole long thing about all the books I read. But polyvagal theory is about how our autoimmune system is also impacted. So guilt isn't just psychological, it's also in our bodies. You feel it, you really feel it, and it's excruciating. And it's exactly why we want to relieve that pain by saying yes, by conceding, or by trying to find the solutions to other people's problems that often when they were creating the problems, we was nowhere to be seen. I see you giggling here. I don't know if this is not the comedy jam. This is serious psychological stuff with a little bit of flavor on it, sister. But you know what I'm talking about, sister. It's so true, right? Oh, I wish I could see you right now because I could do with some real life jokes because it's the truth. It is the absolute truth. We find the solution to their problems, but when they was creating their problems, we was nowhere in the vicinity. And then when you say no because you read your boundaries, you know about your boundaries, you bought your little Louise Hay book. Big up to all the people buying your Louise Hay books. Yeah. And then now it's excruciating. And what I'm here to tell you is you need to befriend the pain. Mm-hmm. Befriend the pain. I've got something coming up here in the chat. Yes, after ending my relationship with the father of my child, I developed lupus. Oh, he was a problem. He was a lot on you, sister. If you developed lupus, and I don't even know that word, autoimmune disease, I have carried that guilt for years. Oh my Lord. JT, please inbox me. Please inbox me because one of the challenges I have as a psychotherapist is the reason how I know that this is all linked to physical health is because so many of my clients come and they have IBS, they've had Crohn's, they have, bruxism, grinding of teeth. It's all connected. This is one of the challenges when we go to the doctors, they're dealing with us from a kind of head, a biological basis only. We are holistic beings. We need to take everything into context. That's why in therapy, I want to know, people think, well, my mum always said I was quite nosy, but now I was like, Mum, now I can say, Mum, it was the gift, Mum. That's why I'm a good therapist. It's not nosy. It was God's gift to me. Now I get curious about people's lives. I ask lots of questions because I need to understand who you are and most importantly, how you have become who you are. IBS is just one of the reasons because it is about the gut. Yeah. Some argue that the emotional brain is in our gut. And that's why we have to befriend guilt. This is where mindfulness practice can come in, where you learn to observe the guilt rather than identify with the guilt and then react. So you have to be able to say, I remember when my daughter's dad, who had abandoned me, left me with the car. Well, he hadn't left me with the car. He hid the car because he didn't want to pay me for the car. And then he'd gone off to Jamaica when he got his passport. Because if you know, back in the 90s, a lot of men were getting married for passports. If you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying, right? And so I wasn't prepared to get married. So we had the relationship on the side because I apparently was the one he loved and he didn't really love her, but he really, really loved me. And then she came to my house one day and she was like, I'm the wife and he loves me. And I was like, oh dear. Oh dear. Big troubles. But that's life. Now he becomes session material and content. That's because we make our pain purposeful, ladies. What do we need to do? We make the pain purposeful. Adversity comes to all of us in life. The secret is how do you make your pain purposeful? Here I am 20 years later talking about the situation. So when the individual got their passport, they fled, they went back home because now they could travel, but they left me in a whole load of debt with their 2 children. There's me thinking, what did I think? I thought I would get a return on my investment. To all the accountants out there, I thought that if I gave and gave and gave, that actually I would get the return on my investment, but I didn't. I get left alone, on my own, in debt, with my 2 kids. So stress hives, here we have, look, here it comes, more and more and more. So why am I saying this to you? I'm saying this to you because adversity, if I forget my train, do let me, just pull me back, because I have a habit of going off on little tangents. But what I was saying is, why was I telling you guys about the reason why he left me in the lurch? Because that in itself is so humiliating. It's embarrassing to have to then go and to tell people. So, this is what happened. So then 6 months later, because sometimes what manipulative people do, I don't know if anybody else has had this, but they leave you time to stew. They leave you time to cool down. So 6 months later, what does he do? He reemerges, right? And then there's the long story. If you know about the long story that people tell you, they tell you a long story and then he asks for more money. And even though I was in debt, I felt guilty saying no. Anybody tell me, why do you think I felt guilty saying no? Even though I was in debt and he was asking me for more money, why do you think I felt guilty? Indeed, you're a fixer. Most definitely. So here you have a fixer. Hope of a return on the investment, most definitely. Wanted to please, most definitely. I wanted to say that, yeah, I did. And I remember asking a colleague at work if they could lend me the money, and she didn't lend me the money, so I couldn't help. And what I realized was I never got back to him because I was embarrassed. I couldn't help him. And you know what? The next time I spoke to him, do you know what he did? He didn't even ask. What did that teach me? It taught me that I can take on somebody's problem. I can worry about their problem. I can beg and try and find solutions for their problem. What are they doing? Living their best life. Die, give me a high five. You know what I'm saying? You're probably traumatizing another girl out there. There's me sitting at home in bed thinking, oh, how can I do this? Oh, where can I ask this money from? And they are living their best lives. And so what we need to do as the selfless, empathic, highly agreeable people is we need to be inspired by selfish people. Be inspired by selfless people who you complain about, who annoy you, who hurt you. Because they have got the traits and the skills that you need to develop. Now, we don't want to go down the far road as them. We don't want to be that end of the spectrum, because life always have a habit of beating them on the bum, biting them on the bum. Indeed, it did. I smile so sweetly. Life is so good. You just got to be patient. We don't do revenge. We just know that what you sow is what you reap. There you go. The farmer. So why am I saying this? We need to see the things that they do, and we need to be inspired. Like I said, we don't want to be at that far end of the spectrum, but they don't have any shame saying no. They focus on themselves. Selfless people are poor at focusing on their own needs. Why? Why are selfless people poor at focusing on their self needs? Somebody's going to have to give me an answer here. Why are selfless, highly empathic, highly agreeable people poor at focusing on their own needs? Here we got a few answers here. Why are they? I've got here, just get this to scroll up. Oh, maybe they feel like they deserve to put people first because they care about others. We don't know. Okay, because they care about the needs of others. Validation, no life practice. Beautiful. What I have, where I'm at with that is because I know my needs were never identified as a little child. No one saw my needs. No one saw my needs. So I don't see my needs in adulthood. I don't even know I have needs in adulthood. For a lot of people who make it to therapy, who are generally tend to be selfless, highly empathic, highly agreeable people, often they don't even know what they need. Sometimes they struggle to have an opinion for themselves. Sometimes, depending on how far the spectrum is. But when you grow up with parents who don't notice your needs, it's very difficult for you to notice your needs when you come into your adulthood. And so we've become so selfless, we've become so other-focused that to do things for the self, to put the self first, is excruciating. This is why boundaries are very, very difficult. Yeah, insecurity, poor self-esteem. Beautiful answers. They search for their needs to be solved by others. Interesting answers. But if your needs were never noticed in your younger years, if your basic needs were met, if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of need, forgive me if you're not familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of need, then what will often happen is your basic needs will be met, food, water, you'll be housed. But the third step is about love. And we're not here to blame our parents. God knows they had their own challenges. But we need to look at them through a curious lens in order to understand the dilemmas we're having in the present moment, because some of the clues, the roots, the reason why it's so difficult, because you can read all you like about boundaries, but if it's very difficult for you to implant them into your life, then it's highly likely what we're looking at is some attachment issues. And I know people don't like to go there. It's fine, you don't need to go there, but if you don't want to go there, don't worry. It's already there, because it's showing up in your behavior. This is why people want to avoid therapy. It's fine, go and buy another Gucci bag. Go and buy another fancy car. But it ain't going anywhere. It just keeps showing up, and it will show up most acutely in your relationships. And with the cherry on top will be the kind of make choices that we make. And this is why, we have to look at the things that are hurting us. So any questions, thoughts? Because I'm ad-libbing right here. I've just kind of like, I'm not someone who like overly prepares. I'm happy to just talk about these challenges. I hope this is helpful to people. I definitely have an anxious, preoccupied attachment style. This is describing me 100%. So that's really helpful. Attachment, this is one of the reasons why, as a psychotherapist, I have a great regard for lots of people who want to help people. The challenge is these issues aren't just surface. They have deep roots. And so, like I said, being highly agreeable means you disproportionately focus on others. And it's understandable that it will be excruciating for you when you begin to do you. It will be very uncomfortable. And all I can say to you is you need to learn to, if this is your guilt, what happens is you're over-identify with it. So you attach to the guilt and then you respond with it. So you respond. What your girl Key does, yeah, this is what I do. This is simple stuff here. I just look at it. I think, oh, here's me guilt. Here it comes. Look at that, huh? Years ago, that would have made me respond. Now I'm just like, well, that's really interesting. Because if I would respond to that, I would do 1, 2, 3. Do you know how much people think I'm now selfish? Oh, okay, you've taken it too far now, man. You're so selfish, not like I used to be. You changed. So now I marvel at the guilt. I don't identify with it. I notice it as a reaction and I sit with it. But you have to learn to slow down as well. Because this process that I'm identifying here can happen in a heartbeat. It's your default. It's like how, you remember when we started driving? You never thought we'd get it, right? Door, mirror, 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 door, mirror, handbrake, like, oh God, like, oof, and indicator and gears and, can't we just do it in a manual? Can't we just do automatic? No, you've got to pass in the manual. I'll never get it. I used to watch people doing it and think, God, how can they just do it so easy? Look at us now, AD. Jump in with car and we're gone, innit? Don't even know how we got there sometimes. Some of them don't know how I got here. Because it's become rote. It's become our norm, right, Rog? There you go. And that's exactly the same for changing our behavior. Nice and slow. At first, it's really painful. But what you need to do is, if you don't react, what you're going to do is you're going to get access. In that gap, you're going to hear all the things you say to yourself. You need to start to capture that. Write those things down. This is your inner voice. We go in depth about your inner voice on my Pain into Purpose course. Because what I realize, and this is why I've created Pain into Purpose, and I know lots of people are telling me, Keeley, don't call it Pain into Purpose. Call it something flowery, call it joyful, call it How to Be Happy. No one's buying it because it's too negative. You got to make it happy. Well, look, I ain't the person to call it whistles and bells when it ain't whistles and bells. If it's a cat, we call it a cat. Because so many people are selling you dreams that don't come to fruition, telling you everything you want to hear. But the reality is this stuff is complex. It's about our vulnerability. Being guilt-tripped was beneficial to you at one time. Responding to your guilt has been beneficial to you. For some of us, we've been brought up in adverse situations. It was best you were controlled. It was best you did what you were told. It was best you became selfless to survive, to cope, to manage. But now, in 2021, when we want to live our best life, once lockdown is finished, it's no longer serving us. It's just not serving us. Therefore, we want to observe it, not identify with it. And the challenge you're going to have, and this is a part of the hand-holding process, I could break this down to you, is what's likely to happen is you're going to experience loss. If you know what I'm talking about, you're going to experience grief. You're going to experience bewilderment. People will not welcome you, not responding in your traditional, typical ways. Especially if their lifestyle is built on you. If their lifestyle is built upon you, if you house people, if you let somebody sofa surf, if you let them move in with their gear, they are not going to welcome your change. And you could be vulnerable. So we have to be very mindful. That's why we don't go around speaking truths. Speak your truth. We use discernment. A lack of discernment can be very unhelpful for people, put them in very difficult situations. Identify the guilt and being set free from it. You know me, I like to pull at your synapses key, most definitely. Too many of us identify with this. We're too agreeable and we want to fix. It hurts us. And this is why we get depressed. This is why we get highly anxious. We don't even know our needs, but we are so great at identifying everybody else's. So great at noticing everybody else. Oh, they need this, they need that. And then you know what happens? People become ungrateful. They just expect you to do it. Then they develop a sense of entitlement. Oh, that one's even worse. Di, I love your face. Your face, no, your face is expressionate just like mine. Yeah. That sense of entitlement is really worrying. And what's even worse is that you kind of know you're going to do it as well. That's even worse because you know you're going to do it. You will concede. Some of us put up a little bit of a fight, don't we? But the guilt gets the best of us. We do it for the quiet life. Short-term gain, long-term pain. And this is one of the reasons why when we don't get the ROI, return on the investment, it is incredibly crippling, incredibly hurtful, because people who score high on the traits of selflessness, empathic, and being highly agreeable, when you need the help, when you think you'll get the return, it is devastating. And that's why it then ends up feeling like a curse to care. Have anybody ever felt like it's a curse to have a kind, caring nature? Yeah. That's when you begin to think, God, like, why have you made me like this? Why do I care? Why do I give the person selling the big issue a $5 every time and buy the magazine and I don't even bloody want it? You feel overwhelmed because you care too much. So I've got a few people here asking me about some questions. So here we have a question. Would you say that a person may not feel that they deserve, as this is what they have been accustomed to, so they wish to please others? Well, if you feel that you don't deserve, that's again goes back to the fact that you don't know what your needs are, because your needs were ever identified. One of the factors that I often talk about for people is about how your birthday was celebrated as a kid. For some of us, maybe we were celebrated as a kid, but it's often quite an interesting space to reflect. I know I never had a party as a child. I had my first party that I organized when I was 22, and I told everybody about it. I'm organizing my own party. It was me celebrating me. Very difficult when you never had a party as a kid. You didn't get that celebration. And also, for me, I also grew up in my dad had other children as well. So then I'd see them get different treatment, and then I didn't get the parties, obviously, because there's a different mum. She's taking control. So then, that sense of inadequacy begins to develop. Why don't I have that? They're better. They're better than me. They're more loved. And the challenge is they have gone on to be in very steady, consistent, intimate relationships. Interesting, right? This is why it links back to how we were loved or not loved in our past. Yeah. So would you say that a person may feel that they deserve? Well, the thing is about not feeling that you deserve it. People who are selfless struggle to receive. They struggle to receive because firstly, they're not used to being noticed. They're just this relentless giver. So when someone notices you, I mean, I still freeze now. If I get one of my coaches put a really beautiful comment on one of my posts, it's one of the posts I don't answer them. I don't even know what to say sometimes, but I know I do it. So I have a conscious awareness. So I then force myself to go and answer to that. Givers are not good at receiving. This is why givers need takers. For many of us who desire a healthy relationship, the problem we have is we're going to reject the people who can give us what we want because they make us feel uncomfortable because they really like us. And they're kind and they're considerate and they're like, oh God, he's a bit much. He's just full on. Like, oh, what's he done? He just really likes me. I don't have to win him over, don't have to shave me legs. He just accepts me. Or we call him boring because we like excitement. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go. If you know what I'm talking about, can somebody give me a heart or a like out here? Because sometimes I don't know if I just on my own little track here. Guilt physically hurts. It's so hard to sit with. It's so heavy. Yes, guilt does physically hurt. And like I said, because it's in the body. Great book. The Body Keeps a Score. It's in your body. And that's why slowing down is so important. Because if guilt has been a thing for all your life, you're just going to react to it straight away unconsciously, like how we drive to the place and we don't even know how we got there. You just respond to that guilt. Therefore, if we can slow down and then journal or write. What do you notice? Pull out the voice in your head. This is what we look at in Pain into Purpose. We look at your voice. We have to listen to what you say to yourself, because often what you say to yourself never gets examined. This is why when people in therapy and they start to tell me what they say to themselves, I can see them stop mid-flow. They're like, boy, I can see what's happening. They stop mid-flow. And I say, yeah, when you say it, what's in your head? It sounds berserk, doesn't it? It does. But we've never, ever put it into words. And obviously in therapy, people have to tell me. So as they put it into words, they're like, yeah, that's some weird shit going around my head there. I know. It's all right. That's why we speak it. But you speak it in safe spaces. Safe spaces. We speak that in safe spaces. Guilt physically hurts. Guilt physically hurts. Most definitely. Most definitely. Guilt by giving to themselves. However, no guilt in pleasing others. Identify the guilt and set yourself free. Change is hard. Change is hard. There's no two ways about it. Change is hard. But staying stuck is harder. Because if you stay stuck, if you keep doing what you're doing that's not longer working, you don't get a break. You don't get, okay, well, at least in 6 months, I'll be somewhere else. Often what you're going to get is a slow decline. This is how abusive relationships start off, so it's a slow decline. And remember, the more you're giving or the more you're fixing, the more you're finding 101 5,000,000 solutions for all the problems that they create, is the more often, and this is the bizarre thing, this is when it gets on another level, they can develop a disdain for you. They can develop actually a kind of loathing of you. Really weird, right? A disdain for you. They actually begin to not like you. And then if you need to be validated by them, you'll go over hard. Again, you'll keep trying even more, giving even more and more and more in order for them to be like, well done, because we're seeking the validation. We're seeking people's validation. We want people to think of us highly. And this is one of the reasons why guilt trips work, because they work on your need. Write this down somewhere, put it on a banner. For some of us, we need to tattoo this on our forehead so we don't forget it. I'm about to forget it. I forgot it. What was I going to say, Claire? Save me. Claire, don't leave me hanging. Where was I before I stopped and I started? What was it? Someone save me, remind me. I will forget. You said write it. I did say write it, but what did I say before that, Fran? Someone's a bit, I know it was about guilt. I know it was about guilt. I know if I think too hard, I won't remember. Guilt trips work. Thank you, my friends. Guilt trips work because you seek that person's validation, because you care about what they think about you. You care. That's all. And you want those people to think about you in the way that you want them to think about you. You want them to think about you in a positive light. Again, my empaths, you care too much. You care too much. And this is why people do very well out of you in life. Your employers do well out of you in life. Some of your employers will be seeking highly empathic people for their jobs because they know what you're like. You will go above and beyond. Anybody know about going above and beyond here? Yes. You go above and beyond to prove. And by virtue of going above and beyond to prove, you are exposing your vulnerability. You go above and beyond to prove. When we go above and beyond to prove, it is exposing an inadequacy that we have about ourselves. But you know what? Actually, I challenge that. I like going above and beyond sometimes. It's really lovely to be thoughtful and considerate. It's a beautiful thing, but we must be discerning as ever about who we give that to. Sometimes we're giving it to people who are not worthy. But at some level, what we need is their validation. We want them to validate us. And this isn't just about intimate relationships, this will be in our families. At some level, we're looking for some form of validation. You're looking outside of yourself. And as long as you're looking outside of yourself, there will be problems, because this is how we become inauthentic. Well, I mean, somebody has here who take advantage. People, of course, people will take advantage, but it's a bit like if you go on the trains and, I know when back in the day, if I went to the train station and the gates weren't closed, I was jumping on that train for free. If the train man forgot to lock the gate, that ain't my problem. I'm gonna ride the train for free. Why am I telling you this? Well, the reason why people take advantage of you is because you let them. Why? What's the fear? We look at fear and pain into purpose. The fear, well, it depends on your relationship with fear. Often, fear is because we live in here. Big up to all the overthinkers, to all the people who think you can work everything out with your tiny mind. You won't step up until you've got all your ducks in a row. Huh? Everything's just got to be so. Huh? No space for spontaneity. Want to be in control. Life doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. And that's why you will become depressed when life shows you and keeps proving to you that life does not work on your terms. The key is surrender. Big up to the high five, Anita. Give me an emoji. Give me something out here. Let me know I'm making sense to someone. Good to hear. Good to hear. Hey, gosh, I miss real life interactions. And this is how guilt works, and this is how guilt gets the best of you. And this is what I am passionate about, helping people to dissect. We got to dissect, man. We've got to dissect, because there's a flow. And once you can get through all of this, how do you begin to validate you? How did I begin to validate me? Well, I had to get myself out of my comfort zone. Sometimes I was seeking validation from others because I felt inadequate about my own status in life, where I was at in life. So I wanted people to speak highly of me. Now, people have their opinion. People's opinion of me generally is none of my business. If it was, I'd be worried about how I present myself, or for the live today. I would have had to have got all dressed and put my makeup. I put it on for you, fine people. But generally, it is what it is, isn't it? Oh gosh, look at her. You know how long it's taken me to be this confident and not give a toss? Big up to all the people dancing in the middle of the dance floor, ain't waiting for it to warm up. We're getting out hardcore, we're ready. You can't buy that kind of confidence. It's hard won. This isn't for sale. It's a unique experience. It's a unique journey for you. And often for each of us is always usually linked to how we were raised. We have to learn to be our own best friend. I'm here to tell you, you need to befriend guilt. Slow down. Look at the people, isolate the people in your life who really take you on them guilt trips. They feed off you and you energize them. I'm not here to tell you you lot are victims either. I'm not one of them therapists who's going to do there, poor you, look what they done. No. Relationships are co-created. What do we do that enables people to do what they do to us? And so I've put a few questions in the workbook for you to think about, just to kind of get your mind going. Now, obviously, it's not going to have the depth that we've gone into today, but it's just a few questions to get you thinking about your relationship with guilt, how it controls you. Remember, for many of us, the challenge, I could teach you about guilt all day long, but the challenge is your relationship with fear. Your relationship with fear is key. Because for many of us, fear keeps us going around in vicious circles, overthinking, and taking zero action. And I'm not the therapist who you're going to come to and sit there and talk about it all day. No, because I'll fall asleep. We ain't going to just sit there talking about it. I'm going to be challenging you. I'm not that one. Go and find Betty. Jill, Jane, Jim. Oh, poor you. Oh, did they do that to you? How cruel. We're not doing that. We're going to dissect. We're going to look at what you do that is unhelpful, that causes you problems. And so in the workbook, there's just 5 little questions that get you thinking about your relationship with guilt. That's what I really want you to encourage you to get beyond just putting boundaries. Oh, you feel boundary. Put your boundaries in place. Well, boundaries are very difficult because as soon as you start to exercise them, it's okay when you're exercising them with, somebody else or someone that's not potent in your life. But people like our parents, family members, our lovers, it can be very, very difficult. Even now to this day, I'll still play, but I'm a strategist. So sometimes it's okay. I don't mind doing guilt trips, but I'm conscious of it and I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm not telling you it doesn't happen to me. Come on, let's be honest. A lot of us ladies, probably parents, we guilt trip our kids all the time. But when it becomes unhelpful and damaging, that's the problem. Some of it we need to, it's like the kids would never eat the fruit or the veg, would they? You know what I'm saying? So some of that, we need to do that. But it's when it becomes toxic, when it becomes depressed, when we go to the doctors and it's about, all right, okay, here's some tablets now. And we're like, whoa, hold on, hold on. I know I'm in a bad place, but I don't want to start doing the medication thing quite yet. Maybe I need to look at some issues in my life. Good, that's helpful to us. How can we challenge? So Tracy here has asked me, how can we challenge our relationship with fear? Well, my friend, my sister, I think what you need to do, sign up for Pain into Purpose. That's where we do that. We look at your relationship with fear, and I've added some new material just to help people go a little bit further, because ultimately our relationship with fear is key to the quality of our life. If you're unhappy or you're watching people and you're like, oh my God, look at them, they're doing this, that, the other. We have to think about our relationship with fear, especially for people who like to be in control. If you like to be in control, your life is often governed by fear. And your world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and tighter, so you feel more in control. And when you're not in control, we're likely to kick off because we're out of that comfort zone. The reality is in life, we don't have control. So much of life we don't control. Here we are in a pandemic. How many months later? Look at me sitting here in my nice vest, but got me leggings on underneath. You know how it goes. We're all doing it, ain't we? We're all doing it. Come on. Thank God we ain't got the full view. We know this. Whoever's sitting out there in their knickers, give me a heart. Give me a heart. I know. Go and die. I know. Go and die. Go on. Cheeky I am. So that's one of the ways we do that. I help people because that's why I brought the Pain into Purpose together, because as I'm getting busier now, you may or may have not noticed, I'm not taking on any new one-to-one clients at the moment. So the focus is I want to help more people. And so Pain into Purpose is exactly how I'm doing that. I'm synthesizing all the insights that I've been developing over the years working with people. I also want to tell you that my empath course is in the lovely hands of Claire, who it's on that to-do list, isn't it, Auntie Claire? It's on that to-do list. And that is in the development right now, but it all feeds into other. If you're a highly empathic person, get on the Pain into Purpose course, because just how I can sit here and use content with regards to my daughter's dad, it's beautiful for me. Absolutely beautiful. And for so many of us, the difficult things that have happened in our life, it's excruciating. It is still hurting us. It is still biting us on the arse. For some of us, we can't love again. We can't be vulnerable in the same way again because of those historic past hurts or because of the hurt that we're in now. For some of us, we always desire healthy, wholesome love, but we can't receive healthy, wholesome love, especially if because some of the attachment issues that I've touched on tonight. We want it, but we cannot receive it. It is excruciating. I know, as a woman who used to fall in love with guys who had oodles of potential, but no damn drive. If you know what I'm talking about, talk about oodles of potential, but no damn drive. I would be their bestest friend. Oh, I had dreams together. We were going to like B and J, you know what I'm saying? We're going to take over the world. If he could stop smoking spliffs, do you know what I'm saying? And get out of bed before 1, do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying? That's all I wanted, like, to just get up out of bed now. It's 1. He smoked a 10-pound bag of weed already. It's just too like, come on, bruv. But he's got dreams. No drive. Actually, he did have drive because he was driving the car I took out on tick. But that's a whole nother story and we're not here for that. But if you're laughing, you know exactly what I mean. A lot of us fall in love with potential. And that's not healthy for us. I don't want to fall in love with anyone who's got potential. I want potential personified. If you know what I'm talking about, people say potential personified, personified. Break it down. Potential personified. If you keep going for people who've got loads of potential and you're starting to try to leverage people to get them up, let it go, sister. I want someone who's there already. I need a shoulder. You know what I'm saying, Rog? I need a shoulder, Rog. Some of us are picking up liabilities every single day. So I'm mindful of the time. I'm now overthinking everything that has been said against everything I do. JT, I hope that's helpful for you. What I would say to you, if you need to have a conversation with me, Claire, can we put the link to have a conversation with me for Setmore, my diary? Let's have a conversation if you want to explore what's brought up, because this is some deep stuff. Like I said to you, I don't plan it. I can just talk because I love what I do. And the reason why I can just talk about it off the cuff, I've dealt with this. I can still contend with it. But I have grown and I help people in all manner of creative ways, because this is the stuff that feeds into common mental health problems, why we're anxious, why depressed. When you're selfless, you are not doing you. And the sad reality is the people who we are helping are doing them. That's why they often end up excelling, or they leave us and abandon us, which is even more hurtful. And then they go off. And then, you know, we hear about different lifestyles that they're living and we're still grieving and we're filled with hurt. Turn those lemon into lemonades, just as I have. Just as I have. If I can do it, I believe everybody has the potential to do it. I know I've gone really far down the rabbit's hole, but not everybody will, and that's fine. But now here I am, 20 years on, now I've got adult children, and this is how I help people for a living. Who would have ever thought that when I was in my darkest moment, sitting outside some woman's house because my car was parked outside and you ain't been back for 3 days and the money had come out of my bank account? Do you see what it can do to people? It can drive you to some very dark places, but it's okay if you learn how to make your pain purposeful. Claire, we need to take these questions. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but maybe I should continue to answer them because it just feels like there's a lot of love there. Are we able to pull them out and then, yeah, that would be great. So my people, it is now 2033. I tell you all the time, I could talk for ages. Like, I love what I do. I'm passionate about helping people, and I'm passionate about helping people to dissect how we get into these situations. The challenge for many of us is we need to look at and find the nuggets of gold in adverse situations. There are life lessons there for us to learn from. It's not going to be comfortable and there will be loss, but actually some of us need to let go of the dead wood so we can invite the mahoganies into our life. If you know about mahogany, I know you know about mahogany. Remember them all, you know, get the sheen out every week and shine that we want some mahogany. You know what I'm saying? We got to let rid of the dead wood in order to allow newness into our life. And in that process, sometimes we end up alone. For many of us, if you're frightened of being alone and you avoid being alone by keeping people around you ain't helpful for you, you're going to need some hand holding through this journey. And it's okay. Great. It's a good, for many of us, lockdown have taught us how to be alone anyway. Some of us are overcoming some of these challenges because lockdown has just done it to us. So like I said, I hope this has been helpful for you. We do it all again next month. We're going to put a poll out there and ask people what they would like me to talk about. If fear is one of them, I think fear might be another one to think about. I'll probably dissect fear a little bit more, one specific element out of fear. I hope this has been helpful to you. It's your girl. I'm Keeley Taverner. I'm a grassroots girl who was pregnant young by the age of 19, had 2 kids, was working at IKEA on the checkout. Excuse me, can you leave your yellow bag behind? And I had a dream and an ambition. I wanted more for myself because I was like, surely if I keep doing this ain't going to be good for my kids. Started reading self-help books and look where I am today. Today, I tell you, I'm in my own house. I own a house now. That's exactly what I've been able to do by turning lemon into lemonades. And you have the potential to do it too if you choose to invest yourself. One way to work with me is on the Pain into Purpose course. And if you're an empath and you're tired of being used and abused and people taking your kindness for weakness, I know your pain, but your gift is never a curse. It's not a curse to care. We're just throwing our kindness, our love at the wrong people. Firstly, we need to give it to ourselves. There you go. Grapes to champagne. Yes, Mr. Roger. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good night, my people. I'm just going to go and get some H2O because I didn't have any when I was delivering. I thank you, and I look forward to seeing you on Pain into Purpose. Take care of you, because if you don't, who will? Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Da da dee oh do. Good night, sweetheart. Well, bye, Di. To go. I really hate to leave you, but I really must say. Who wants to stay on the call? Good night, sweetheart. Good night. Do do dee oh do dee oh do dee oh do. I ain't got no more words to sing. I'm done. Guys, I hope you enjoyed tonight. Like I said, do sign up for Pain into Purpose. If you've got any questions or you need to talk to me or something I've said's really shook you up there, I understand that. Do inbox me. I'm happy to take the conversation on further. I wish you all a great good night. Thank you.